Jail Joseph! He tried to dishonor your house. He must be punished.
Imagine you are respected at work. People trust you. Your reputation took years to build. Then one day, someone tells a story about you. A story that isn't true. Suddenly, people stop looking at you the same way. Friends become distant. Your name becomes connected to something you never did. And the most painful part? You know the person who accused you once wanted something from you. This is not just a story from thousands of years ago. It is a story about human emotions that still exist today. Desire, rejection, pride, anger, and the dangerous moment when someone feels they have lost control. The Bible tells the story of Joseph, a young man who was falsely accused by the wife of a powerful Egyptian official named Potiphar. But what was really happening inside her mind? Was it simply jealousy? Was it revenge? Was it wounded pride? Or was there something deeper happening psychologically? What can the story of Potiphar's wife teach us about the human mind and why some people turn rejection into destruction? Before we uncover the hidden psychology behind this ancient story, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay until the end, because the final lesson reveals why this story is still relevant in modern relationships, workplaces, and society today. The story of Potiphar's wife is one of the most famous examples of a false accusation recorded in ancient literature. According to the book of Genesis, Joseph was sold into slavery and eventually became a servant in the house of Potiphar, an important Egyptian official. Joseph was described as hard-working, trustworthy, and successful. Over time, Potiphar gave him responsibility over everything in his household. But then something changed. Potiphar's wife noticed Joseph. The story explains that she repeatedly tried to persuade Joseph to have a relationship with her. Joseph refused, and after being rejected, she accused him of wrongdoing. The result? Joseph was punished and imprisoned. Now, this story is often viewed only as a moral lesson about temptation, but there is another layer. It is also a story about psychology. A story about what can happen when desire meets rejection. Because rejection is not just an emotional experience. For some people, rejection feels like losing power. And when someone cannot process that feeling, they may try to regain control in unhealthy ways. But why does this happen? To understand that, we have to look deeper into the origins of these emotions. Human beings have always struggled with desire, attachment, and rejection. Thousands of years ago, people experienced the same emotional reactions that people experience today. The environment changes, the technology changes, but human psychology remains surprisingly consistent. The behavior we see in the story of Potiphar's wife can be connected to several psychological concepts. One of them is the need for control. Many psychologists explain that people naturally want to feel they have influence over their surroundings. When someone believes they have power over a situation and suddenly loses it, the emotional reaction can be intense. Imagine someone who is used to getting what they want. They are admired. They are respected. They expect people to respond positively to them. Then someone says no. That rejection creates a conflict between what they expected and what actually happened. Psychologists call this kind of discomfort cognitive dissonance. The mind struggles when reality does not match personal beliefs. A person may think, "Why would someone reject me?" Instead of accepting the rejection, some people create another explanation. They must be wrong. They must deserve punishment. They must be the problem. This is where emotions like anger, blame, and revenge can develop. Another factor is social reputation. In ancient societies, reputation was extremely important. A powerful person's image was connected to honor and status. A person who felt embarrassed might attempt to protect their image by controlling the story others believed. And this brings us to one of the darkest parts of human psychology. Sometimes people are not only trying to hurt another person, sometimes they are trying to protect the version of themselves they want the world to see. But the story becomes even more revealing when we examine the behaviors behind it. Desire itself is a normal human emotion. People naturally experience attraction, interest, and emotional connection. The problem begins when desire becomes entitlement. The difference is simple. Healthy desire says, "I like this person." Unhealthy desire says, "This person should give me what I want." In the story, Potiphar's wife appears to move from attraction into expectation. Joseph's refusal created a situation where she had to confront a reality she did not want. She could not control another person's choice, and that moment became the turning point. Because desire without emotional control can become dangerous. Rejection, sensitivity. Some people experience rejection more intensely than others. For them, rejection is not simply disappointment. It feels like humiliation. A person may interpret a simple no as, "I am not valuable. I have been disrespected. I have been embarrassed." When emotions become overwhelming, people sometimes react to remove the painful feeling. Instead of asking, "Why am I hurt?" they ask, "How can I make this person feel what I feel?" This is where revenge can appear. The need to protect self-image. Human beings create stories about themselves. I am respected. I am attractive. I am important. When something threatens that identity, the brain naturally tries to defend itself. A person may avoid admitting, "I was rejected," because that requires vulnerability. Instead, they may create a different story. "I was the victim." This does not mean every accusation is false. Many accusations are real and important. But psychologically, false accusations can sometimes happen when someone chooses self-protection over honesty, manipulation, and control. Manipulation is the attempt to influence another person through hidden strategies rather than honest communication. In the story, the accusation becomes a way to change the situation. Joseph would no longer be able to reject her. The power dynamic changed. The person who once felt powerless gained control again. This pattern appears throughout history. Sometimes people attack someone not because that person harmed them, but because that person challenged their expectations. The psychology behind Potiphar's wife is not limited to ancient stories. It appears in everyday life. In relationships, someone may struggle when their feelings are not returned. Instead of accepting the other person's choice, they may become angry or attempt to punish them emotionally. In families, unresolved pride and resentment can damage relationships for years. A disagreement that could have been solved becomes a battle of blame. In workplaces, false accusations or reputation attacks can destroy trust. Someone may feel threatened by another person's success and attempt to damage their image, and in society, we see how quickly people judge situations without knowing the full story. A single accusation can change how people view someone. This is why emotional maturity matters, because every human being experiences rejection. Every person experiences disappointment. The difference is what happens next. Some people process the emotion, others allow the emotion to control them, and that difference can change everything. 7. Surprising facts. One surprising fact about the story of Potiphar's wife is that the Bible gives very little information about her. Her name is never mentioned, yet thousands of years later, she remains one of the most discussed characters in the story of Joseph. Why? Because people recognize the psychology behind her actions. The story feels familiar. Another surprising fact is that false accusations are not always created from pure hatred. Sometimes they come from a combination of emotions: pain, embarrassment, fear, loss of control. The human mind can create powerful explanations when reality becomes uncomfortable. Another interesting point is that rejection does not create bad behavior by itself. Millions of people experience rejection and respond with maturity. The difference is emotional regulation, the ability to experience a painful emotion without allowing that emotion to decide your actions. And this is where the story of Potiphar's wife becomes much deeper than a story about one person. It becomes a mirror showing us how every human being handles disappointment. But the story does not end there, because the consequences of one emotional decision can last far longer than the moment that created it. The most dangerous thing about emotions is not that we feel them. It is what happens when we allow them to control our decisions. The story of Potiphar's wife shows one of the biggest risks of unchecked emotional reactions. A temporary feeling can create permanent damage. Think about the moment after rejection. The emotion may only last minutes or hours. The anger, the embarrassment, the feeling of being powerless. But a decision made during that emotional storm can affect years of someone's life. For Joseph, the accusation changed everything. A person who was trusted and respected suddenly became a prisoner. His reputation was damaged. His freedom was taken away. And this reveals something important about accusations. Words have power. A false story can travel faster than the truth. Even today, people can experience similar situations. A rumor spreads. A misunderstanding grows. A person's character is questioned before anyone asks what really happened. This does not mean accusations should be ignored. Real harm must always be taken seriously. But it does remind us that fairness requires wisdom. We live in a world where emotions can move faster than facts. A person can feel angry and immediately react. They can post something online. They can tell others a story. They can make a decision they later regret. Psychologists often discuss the importance of emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is the ability to recognize what you are feeling, understand why you feel it, and choose a response instead of simply reacting. Without it, emotions become like a driver controlling a vehicle with no brakes. Another consequence of revenge is that it often damages the person seeking it. A person may believe, if I hurt them, I will feel better. But research on anger and revenge suggests that revenge often keeps people connected to the pain they are trying to escape. Instead of healing, they continue replaying the situation. They continue living inside the moment of rejection. The person they wanted to punish may move forward, while they remain trapped in the emotion. And this leads to an important question. If someone experiences rejection, hurt, or humiliation, how can they respond in a healthier way? The story of Potiphar's wife is not only a warning, it is also an opportunity to understand ourselves. Because every person will experience moments where emotions feel overwhelming. The question is not, will I ever feel rejected? The question is, what will I do when I feel rejected? The first step is awareness. A person must learn to identify the emotion beneath the emotion. Sometimes anger is not really about anger. Sometimes anger is covering, pain, insecurity, fear, embarrassment. A person might say, I am angry because they disrespected me. But deeper down, the real feeling might be, I feel unwanted. I feel powerless. I feel like I lost control. Understanding the real emotion creates space for better choices. The second step is creating distance between feeling and action. When emotions are intense, the brain naturally wants immediate relief. It wants to react. But a healthier response is to create a pause. Ask, is this decision going to solve the problem, or is it only expressing my pain? This simple question can prevent years of regret. The third step is accepting what cannot be controlled. One of the hardest lessons in human relationships is this. You cannot control another person's feelings. You cannot force someone to choose you. You cannot force someone to understand you. You cannot force someone to respond the way you want. Real emotional strength comes from accepting reality without allowing reality to destroy your peace. Therapists often encourage people to develop healthier emotional habits, communicating openly, learning self-awareness, building self-worth that does not depend completely on external approval, practicing empathy, and learning how to handle disappointment without turning pain into punishment, because rejection does not define your value. Someone saying no does not mean you are worthless. Someone disagreeing with you does not mean you are powerless. And someone leaving your life does not mean your life has lost meaning. The healthiest people are not people who never experience painful emotions. They are people who learn how to carry those emotions without letting them control their actions. But there is another important layer to this story. Many people confuse different types of harmful behavior. They confuse manipulation with insecurity. They confuse revenge with justice. They confuse emotional pain with being a victim. And understanding the difference changes everything. Now that we have explored the psychology behind Potiphar's wife, there is another part of the story worth examining. Because not every person who experiences rejection reacts the same way. Some people become destructive. Others become stronger. Some people blame others. Others use the experience as a moment of growth. Many people confuse emotional vulnerability with emotional weakness. But these are completely different things. So what separates a person who grows from rejection from a person who becomes controlled by it? To understand that, we need to compare two very different responses to pain: emotional maturity versus emotional manipulation. Emotional maturity usually develops through self-awareness, life experience, and the ability to reflect on personal emotions. A mature person learns, I can feel something without acting on every feeling. Emotional manipulation often develops when someone believes control over others is the solution to their emotional discomfort. Instead of managing their feelings internally, they try to change the outside world. Behavior. An emotionally mature person communicates. They express disappointment honestly. They accept boundaries. They understand that another person has the right to make choices. A manipulative person may attempt to pressure, guilt, blame, or punish someone for not meeting their expectations. Maturity often looks like patience, humility, and accountability. A mature person can say, I am hurt, but I still need to be fair. Manipulation often involves avoiding responsibility. The person may think, my feelings justify my actions. But feelings explain behavior. They do not always excuse behavior. Healthy relationships require freedom. Love cannot exist where someone is controlled through fear or punishment. A mature person understands that connection requires mutual respect. A manipulative person may see relationships as a way to gain validation, power, or control. Career and lifestyle. In professional environments, emotionally mature people handle criticism better. They can learn from mistakes. They can work with different personalities. Manipulative behavior can create conflict, distrust, and damaged relationships. A mature person asks, what is the wisest choice? A person controlled by emotion asks, how can I stop feeling this pain immediately? The difference is patience. One looks at the future. The other focuses only on the current emotion. Emotional responses. Everyone feels anger. Everyone feels rejection. Everyone feels disappointment. The difference is the response. One person says, this hurts, but I will grow. Another says, this hurts, so someone must pay. And that difference reveals the true battle happening inside the human mind. The psychology behind Potiphar's wife appears throughout history, literature, and popular culture. One famous example is found in the story of King David and Bathsheba. The story explores themes of desire, power, and the consequences of allowing personal wants to override moral responsibility. Another example appears in the world of workplace conflicts. Throughout history, there have been cases where powerful individuals faced accusations, investigations, and public judgment. These situations remind us that reputation, evidence, and fairness matter. In movies and television, This theme appears repeatedly. Many fictional villains are not created from pure evil. They are often characters who experience rejection, humiliation, or loss, and respond by trying to regain control. Characters like these fascinate audiences because they reveal something uncomfortable. The line between pain and destructive behavior can depend on how someone chooses to respond. The story of Potiphar's wife remains memorable because it is not only about an ancient Egyptian household, it is about a human pattern. A person wants something, they are denied. They experience emotional pain, and they choose what happens next. That choice is where character is revealed. The story of Potiphar's wife has survived for thousands of years because it reveals something timeless about human nature. It is not only a story about temptation, it is a story about what happens when desire meets rejection. It shows us how wounded pride, the need for control, and emotional pain can influence human decisions. The biggest lesson is not simply to judge one character from an ancient story. The deeper lesson is to look at ourselves. How do we respond when we are rejected? How do we react when we feel embarrassed? Do we seek understanding, or do we seek revenge? Because every person faces moments where emotions become powerful. The difference between wisdom and destruction is what we choose to do next. A painful emotion is temporary, but the decision we make because of that emotion can change our lives forever. And that is why the story of Potiphar's wife still matters today. Now I want to hear from you. What surprised you most about the psychology behind Potiphar's wife? Do you think her actions were mainly driven by desire, pride, revenge, or something deeper? And have you ever seen a situation where someone reacted badly because they could not handle rejection? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might help someone else see this story from a completely different angle. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe for more videos exploring the hidden psychology behind history, human behavior, and powerful stories from the past. And if you want to discover another story where human emotions changed the course of history, watch the next video on this channel. Thank you for watching.